Hello, English class. I just want to spend a little time this afternoon uh, talking about adjectives and their correct use, and a few of the uses and rules about adjectives that we get wrong often. If you have your books, turn to page number 243. That's where I'm taking these rules from. Number 6 says avoid a double comparison. Don't use er or with more or est with most. It makes for really awkward sentences. For instance, the Nile is more longer than the Mississippi River. That just sounds wrong, and it is wrong. It just say the Nile is longer than the Mississippi River. When you compare a person with a group that the person is a member of, you always have to use other or else when you're doing a comparative. For instance, Katie types faster than any student in her class. That's an incorrect sentence because it says Katie types faster than any student in her class. Well, Katie's a part of the class, and Katie can't type faster than herself. And so to make it correct, you have to say Katie types faster than any other student in her class. You have to put the word other in there so that you've got that comparison. There are often necessary words that you have to put in for a comparison. For instance, it says don't admit necessary words in a comparison. The example your book gives is your essay is the best. Okay, your essay is the best, but the best what? Well, your essay is the best I have read. Now, it could be your essay is the best of the essays that got an A. Or you could say your essay is excellent. Another bad example is Bill's garage is smaller than his neighbor. Well, it's either a really big neighbor or a really small garage. That sentence just doesn't make sense. We need to say Bill's garage is smaller than his neighbor's garage. Or Bill's garage is smaller than that of his neighbor. Rule number 9 says use this and that to modify singular nouns. Use these and those to modify plural nouns. The examples, you can say this kind or these kinds. Singular this, plural these. That sort or those sorts, this type or those types. This kind of stereo receiver is better than those other kinds. Use fewer with items that can't be counted, and use less with a quantity of a substance. The example, fewer people are living in rural areas now than in the past. We can use fewer because we can count people. We can count them really easy. But the sentence, this recipe requires less sugar than the other one. Oh, we might be able to say a cup of sugar and give it an amount, but are we really going to take time to count all of those grains? And so it wouldn't make sense to say this recipe requires fewer sugar because we can't count how many. We might say this recipe requires fewer cups of sugar, but then what we're modifying is cups and not sugar. When referring to time, when referring to an amount, when referring to distance, we often use less than instead of fewer. For instance, they now have less than $1 million. That's like me. I've got way less than $1 million. The fence is less than 50 feet from the back of the house. Less than. She did the work in less than 30 minutes. And number 11, I hear this often. Don't use them as an adjective. Use those. There's a lady in our church when we were in Pennsylvania. Oops. I forgot this is going on the internet. Anyhow, she fed finches, those little little yellow birds. And she would say, them's finches, when pointing them out. Them's finches. No, those are finches. The example your book gives, them weeds are a nuisance. That's incorrect. Those weeds are a nuisance. So don't use them as an adjective. Hopefully, those rules will help you. As you do the next two exercises, A and B, on the next 2 pages, be sure and refer back to these rules, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Thanks. Be sure and do everything and get it in that packet. It needs to be back at school on the 6th, and we'll have another packet for you. If you watch this, be sure and like it so I know who watched.